Hey everybody, Texas Stroker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. Thursday night, 9 p.m. I came out here because it's going to be a 60-mile-an-hour wind and cold front tomorrow. And I thought better take advantage of the warm weather. And didn't feel bad outside. In here, I'm freezing. So what we have going on is the storage and organization kick. So as of yesterday, I released a pallet rack video from back in the summer, like 6-7 months ago, right? Sort of a necessity and something I've been wanting to do type of a thing, and all this ties in with that, albeit in different means. Last night, I took a really long look at two products directly related and very similar to what we're going to be looking at tonight, and by all intents and purposes, that is a long video. It's probably too long, to the point that, yes, if you watch the whole thing, you're going to get a thorough education on said product, but there's still, like, it's lacking a complete showcase, and if I say something's long, that's a problem. So I don't know if I'm going to redo that. I don't exactly have a plan yet, but I am to the point that what you're about to see, I am considering releasing first. Typically, I'm going to go in order, right, of what I record. So like last night, that would be one Saturday. This one's another Saturday type of a deal. I think this may have to be uploaded first, or this will be awkward commentary because I've already made an executive decision to totally redo said video. But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into this. What I'm going to do is throw this box down in front of you, and we're going to talk about it. This is from Carlyle Tools. Of course, you can find Carlyle Tools at Napa. And this, if it looks familiar to you, you've probably seen it other places. If you follow along with the manufacturer or one of the numerous places that has it rebranded, you've seen this. This is something that, again, just like the product, one of them that I showed last night that I can't mention now, because if this comes first, I would totally spoil the video. And even though you can put forth some effort and figure stuff out, I like it to be a surprise to some degree. So this is something I had not seen. I just happened to stumble upon it when I was looking for one of the two items from the previous video that might become the next video. So, all that junk aside, this is a 3/8 peg socket holder, in this case SAE. This is going to be part number PSH38S, alright? Now, back to that OEM and rebrand stuff, right? If you're frequently on the Snap-on truck, you've probably seen these, albeit in different color schemes. If you're a fan of Mechanics Time Savers and you've perused their website several years back when you ordered everything for yourself, or you follow them on social media, there's a chance you may have seen this either in their posts, something they've shared from a customer, that type of a thing. If you watch a lot of toolbox tours, maybe you've seen them there. I've never actually seen someone utilize this outside of Mechanics Time Savers, which again, I just happened to stumble upon this. I've had stuff from MTS for years. I did not know these existed, so serendipitous discovery for me, you could say. The price point on this sucker, if you were to walk into Napa right now, you would be looking at $19.99. Not a bad price, really, but they were having a big promotion. That was like the monthly special for December, was a lot of organization stuff. Obviously costing $19, they don't have a ton of wiggle room there. They took $5 off, so I got this for $14.99. If you were to go to Mechanics Time Savers, you would be able to buy this for $25 basically. So it's $25 direct from the website. Napa, you're $14, or I should say, yeah, I'm on the right line, $14, and then $13.99. So that $10.99. What am I reading here? So, my bad, $14.99. Okay, I'm reading quarter, which, let me just go ahead and tell you, kind of like I did last night. This was a deal where I thought, you know, I want to try these out, but I thought to myself, at the price point they're at, and with everything going on, I'm just going to go ahead and bring in all three. So we're going to stick to this for the showcase for now, but I'll go ahead and cover this so I don't read the wrong lines on you again. PSH25S. In this case, the S after the part number is going to indicate standard. Alright, so if you think, oh, I don't use standard, this stupid American with his old cars. M, PSH 25M. Same thing, replace S with M every time. You've got your part numbers for Carlyle to walk in the store or dig through online, and you can find them that way. That'll get you the metric equivalent of what you see here. So, coming back in, we're just going to go top to bottom. I know you can't see the top. The half-inch stuff barely fits on the work surface, but trust me, it is there. 1/4-inch peg holder for SAE sockets. Again, part number PSH 25S. Let's just put it front and center here so we don't screw it up. And it is a situation where if you walked into Napa, it would be $14.49. It's kind of the oddball price. On the promo, they shaved off $3.50, so I got it for $10.99. $11 for what you see here. This sucker is going to go 1/8 to 5/8. All right, so that's where we stand with this item. Fear not in terms of how they work and function and look outside of the box. We're going to cover that, going through the part numbers and pricing and size ranges at this point in time. So again, jumping back to our original introductory item, PSH 38S. Once more, all this link below. I make nothing off of it. I'm not affiliated with Napa. It would be super cool if I was. But it's solely there for your convenience. Basically saves you from having to search for it on their website, getting frustrated, then searching for it on Google by way of their website, and ultimately arriving there when you can just go down in the description and click the link. So PSH 38S, again, that is our 3/8 what? S for standard, or SAE. Price point is $19.99. Again, $5 off for the monthly special. I was able to pick this up for $14.99. If we come in right here, I've got the half-inch drive. I told you it was back there. It is going to be part number PSH 50S. Again, think of this as like machinist spec. So your 1/4 would be 0.250, 3/8 0.375. It gets rounded up, so it's not the freak oddball part number. And then your half-inch 0.500, round down 0.50. So it's going to be, as you might have guessed, the more expensive of the items. Napa would typically sell that for $23.49. The monthly promo, they shaved $5.50 off. I was able to pick it up for $17.99. So, kind of to recap, on the sale, the big guy, 18 bucks, the 3/8 15, and the 1/4 11. If you were to go direct to Mechanics Time Savers, you would be looking at $30 for the half-inch, and $25 respectively for the 1/4 and the 3/8 versions. Now, back to the size range, which is kind of important here. This could make or break it for some of you. I feel like this is pretty standard. You might wish in this case, I don't think you'd ever want to go smaller than 3/8, but you might want to go bigger than 1 1/4. So if I had to pick like, hey, I wish it would expand, I would say that way. Give me bigger sizes. That said, 3/8, 7/16, half, 9/16, 5/8, 11/16, 3/4, 13/16, 7/8, 15/16, 1 inch, 1 1/16, 1 1/8, and 1 1/4. Pretty comprehensive. That's going to match or give you extra space, I guess you could say, with most half-inch drive socket sets. Be they chrome or be they impact rated. 3/8, pretty comprehensive. I'm pretty happy with this one as well. You're going to start with 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, 7/16, half, 9/16, 5/8, 11/16, 3/4, 13/16, 7/8, 15/16, and 1 inch. If you're sitting here and you're thinking like, oh, I'll never use that and I'll never use those, I don't go over 3/4 with my 3/8 stuff. We'll take a look at this in just a second. And then the 1/4 drive, this is one where you're going to go kind of some, if you use 1/4 drive like SAE, let's be honest, it's going to be real rare unless it's like a hobby specific thing. In terms of like automotive or industrial type of stuff, you would be servicing like stuff in panels, you know, control boxes, with these smaller in sizes, right? So 1/8, 5/32, 3/16, 7/32, 1/4. Now this is where you're typically going to like breach into the 1/4 drive lineup, 3/16 being the most likely. 1/4, 9/32, 5/16, 11/32, 3/8, 7/16, half, 9/16, and are you sitting down? 5/8. That's right, 5/8 being where that sucker maxes out, which I think is kind of cool. Now, There is a caveat with all of that, but let's go ahead and open the 3/8 drive. I feel like this is sort of like your bread and butter. Before we do, let's actually take a look at the box and kind of see what they have to say about their product. 3/8 peg socket holder, 2 rows of pegs for shallow or deep SAE sockets. Obviously, if everything you do with quarter drive needs to be deep and you want to have 6-point and 12-point, you can do that. If you want shallow 6 and 12, you can do that. If you have shallow and deep 6 and 12-point, 6-point shallow, 6-point deep, you buy another one of these and you do the 12-point set. Whatever you're doing, whether it's impact rated, whether it's chrome, whatever works for you, this is able to accommodate in this size range, right? Now, obviously, you know, if you're quarter drive, if you're, I don't know, doing something with 80s electronics or something, you know, like highly specialized, limited stuff, and you never go bigger than 1/2 inch, that's what you deal with on a daily basis, you can totally come in and use these pegs for anything. Like if you also use like hex sockets or anything quarter drive can plug and play. It's just, instead of it being a 13/16 socket, it's going to be your 1/8 hex bit, right? Something along those lines, but it is there. It is usable. It's got size indicators on each row, which I absolutely love. Again, this is part of a big series. We're going to compare and contrast a ton of stuff. Here, I'm just trying to do like a tool haul. This is what we brought. This is kind of what I'm thinking of it initially. And then we're going to real world use it, compare and contrast, and then come back over time. And if I said, man, I hate this junk, and then I'm actually using it, and I'm like, man, I love this thing. What was I thinking? It's so good. Whatever the results of that may be, we will know. But again, that can only come over time. It's just premature to sit here, open this Populated, and say, greatest thing ever. It's great if that's what we're thinking, but again, we need to put this loaded up in a box and have to go and pull and replace sockets all the time and kind of see what we think of it at that point. So this, again, the size range on this one is going to hold 26 sockets, right? So if you get this at a garage sale and you like score it for $2 and you only use metric, you can absolutely put them on here. It's just, again, you're not going to have it like idealized, right? So pulling this sucker out, there she blows. I gotta say, I think some people will think this is sort of like dorky and, you know, I don't need size labels, man. Coming from a guy that uses like the cheapest socket rails imaginable, I could totally make that complaint, but I'm not gonna lie. Even if it's one of those deals where, you know, you're in, you know, high school, your senior year, and, you know, so there's a new Mario Kart that comes out, and you're like, man, I gotta get that. But you can't talk about it because you know everyone's gonna make fun of you. But then, you know, like 2 days later, you hear somebody talking about Mario Kart, and the whole class waxes nostalgic, right? This is one of those deals. You might have some coworkers, some buddies, like come by and like, oh, you dork, you need that for your sockets, loser. I think that might be kind of a cover-up. It might be like sort of a spiteful envy type of a thing, which they can easily replicate because you can get these for like 15 to 20 bucks. But I think if people are being honest and fair, like if the average person sees this, it's going to be like, what is that? You know, where did you get this? I've never seen one. I love it. You know, or like, I want to get that. You know, how do you like it type of a deal. This guy right here, we have it set up. And again, we go from quarter to 1 inch. So that's kind of the lay of the land for our 3/8 drive. What I want to do is get you dimensions because that's going to be important. I also want to highlight each one of these is labeled with the size. Obviously, again, picture shallow and deep for a typical setup. This could also be, as I didn't mention this, if you want shallow chrome and shallow impact, whatever you're doing, you can do it. And as long as it matches with the pegs, it's super organized. But just rough measurements here. We're going to come in and we're going to call this thing about 4.5 inches. It's kind of funky because of the lip. The front row here, which isn't going to be an issue with shallow stuff, it's about, what, 1/2 inch? And then the back, we're going to call that maybe 3/4. So it's pretty compact in and of itself. It's very unlikely, unless you're putting this in like a stupid shallow drawer, that you would have issues with your quarter drive sockets. Anything's possible, depends on your sockets and your box. You know, there's variations I can't account for, but that's rough dimensions there. And then end to end, let's just call that 13.5. So fairly compact, considering again that we're able to get what 26 sockets. It's basically 1 inch per socket type of a thing. Maybe your sockets have fat walls and there'll be interference. Maybe they have super thin walls and you feel like it's wasted space. This gives you a place to put them, and it's spaced, right? And it's labeled, you know, front row, back row. There's a lot going for it. You can probably tell just by looking at this if you're going to like it or if you're going to hate it, but it is what it is. Moving on now, what I want to do is open up the back one, the 1/2 inch drive, and we're going to kind of showcase it. I realize now as I say that, we didn't really showcase the back of the box, I don't think, but it basically says the same thing, so it's not a huge loss. And if we slide this out, one of the neat things here, if you're kind of a fan of not having things branded, this just gets right to the business. There's no Napa logo, there's no Carlyle tools, there's no mechanics time savers, none of that. It's just kind of here. So this is going to be a little bit more robust, and again, just kind of kicking her back so you can get a good look at both of them in the frame. 1/2 inch, again, I can't really even fit it in the frame. 3/8 is the perimeter. This is literally the edge where my finger is. And then this one, you see 1.125". That's not the end. We go all the way to 1.25", and then again, it's spaced appropriately for said socket. Now, coming in again, think of this one as 13.5. Think of the big guy back here reaching over the tripod. Let's go with 18 3/4, basically. So that probably translates to something metric. I'm old school. This is SAE. We're keeping it simple. So that's where that sucker would clock in. If we try to measure end to end, let me just pick it up. It'll be way quicker. I realize you can't see anything, but I'm saving you time. Let's call it roughly like 5 1/4. Height-wise, the front row, you're looking at a little over like 3/8, and then the back at the tallest point, it's like 1.125". So nothing crazy, but again, this is where you would run into some issues in terms of fitment. And what I want to do now, it's important that we kind of, if you haven't grasped this, these are friction pegs, okay? If you can tell by this base right here, that's not your typical like plastic anvil style. It's not the spring clip style. This is basically a peg, sort of looks like a valve stem or like an E-Torx type of a thing, right? But these are rubber, and so they're pretty robust. You know, think of it as like tread on a tire or something along those lines. Roller post-workout type of a deal. You can compress this, and that's kind of the goal, but the socket will come there. It will plug in. If you want to flip it or if you're going to carry it, you can do that. But it'll essentially hold your socket that way, and then you just simply pull the socket off. Again, rubber kind of pads, rubber pegs. I take that back. There's the branding right there, but it was so subtle I didn't even notice it. In certain light, I don't know that you would even tell that it's there, especially when sockets are on it. Again, if you're a huge Napa or Carlyle fan, maybe that's disappointing. If you prefer things to look discreet and private labeled for you, there you go. This is not magnetic. There's no magnetic stuff here. There's really nothing anti-skid on the bottom. It's just sort of like plastic, right? I will say that this rubber, kind of a rubber feeling rail here, that would be like the extent of, you know, if you slam the cart drawer, I should say, you know, instead of like sliding backwards, you know, maybe it anchors it in place, especially with the weight of a comprehensive socket set. And again, if we pan back out here, you can we can actually see them all. Fantastic. I've been crazy this whole time. My apologies. If you're thinking like, man, just shut up and populate this. That's one of the things that bothered me about last night's endeavor. I didn't populate them because my theory was like, let's just introduce them, showcase them, and then we're going to spend time populating them. If you're thinking like, hey, you haven't pulled the quarter out, buddy. Well, have I got a treat for you? So, and this is very well why this may upload first. Here we have a quarter drive SAE friction peg socket. This whole time I was deceiving you. This was in fact an empty box because it was here. So that is the quarter drive populated, right? As you can see, my little shallow set, we actually drop down to 5/32, whereas the deeps, we start at 3/16 and we also go up to 9/16. It is very hard to find 5/8 in quarter drive. It's very hard to find 1/8 inch in quarter drive. Like, you can do it, but it's not really that common, right? There's probably some people that are like, I have to have 1/8, you know, in 5/32 is critically important to me here in the back. But I feel like at this point in time, unless again it's like older hobbies, just like I'm into old cars and I need SAE, not metric, the small size, it's going to be like specialized, probably electronics. And then I'm going to say I like 9/16 in quarter drive. It's a very common socket size for me. I use a lot of 3/8 hardware. There's a lot of 3/8 hardware on the stuff I'm into. Sometimes that little thinner profile of your quarter drive socket is just what you need. It's just the ticket. The 3/8 ain't happening, and so the quarter becomes the viable solution. If I can track down 5/8, I think I might do it for the same reason. So we shall see. Now, this highlights perfectly one of the cons of this product. If you go out and you buy an Ernst socket rail, if you buy something from Olsa, if you showcase what I showcased last night that I'm currently not going to talk about, each one of those is unique in the fact, like, the rail is a set length with a set number of pegs, but in most of the cases, the pegs can shimmy on off the end and just be collected in your palm and used somewhere else or pocketed should one break, or, you know, the detent quits working type of a deal, just spare parts. The rails themselves, some of them you might not want to cut down because they like look really good or something, but if you're trying to maximize every square inch of your box, in the case of a socket rail, if you have an 18-inch rail and you want to cut it down to 9, or you want to make 2 more cuts and have 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, you can do that, okay? We could technically cut this, but that's going to be a really bad idea because this side is structural, right? So with this organizer, you're kind of stuck with what you've got, right? So if your socket set starts at 3/16, but you know with everything you do, you never go smaller than quarter. Like, you use quarter, 5/16, 3/8, 7/16, and half all the time. You've got to stop and say, like, do I want to take up this much space in my box? And that's a personal decision. It's kind of, it could be space constraint too. You might not care, but if you're trying to fit the, you know, handful of sockets that you use, that you know you use, is it worth it to you? That's going to come down. Do you like the form factor and the style and the size markings and the fact that it's visible in the back too well enough to say, like, I'm cool with the dead space? That's totally your decision. Now, with the quarter drive, the footprint is not near as big of a deal. Let's try to quickly get you some measurements. We'll just go with like just shy of 8.5, and then end to end roughly like 3.5. So again, this one's not a big deal breaker. This could be, right? So if you do things where you're super thrifty and economical, and you run quarter drive from 3/16 to 7/16, and then you run your 3/8 from, let's say, quarter on up to 3/4, and then you run your 1/2 inch stuff from 1/2 inch up to, you know, 1 1/8 inches. It depends, you know, if you're fine losing the space. The other thing, and what I think, especially for viewers of my channel, might be more frustrating, is, let's say that you love this, like, you're like, I don't care about the dead space. You might not worry about the space. Like, you've got the extra boxes, you've got the setup for it, it can handle it, it looks so good, it's something that you are interested in, like so much here that you're going to rush out and buy them. You're like, well, Grady measured them, I'm going to check and confirm, great, green light, I'm going to order them. My advice, wait till they're on sale. But the bigger thing, is this a deal breaker for you? If your socket set in quarter, again, runs from, let's say, 3/16 to 1/2 inch, you've got dead space on both sides, right? Two pegs essentially smaller and 2 pegs larger. Is that going to bother you to the point where it would drive you insane and you have to just rule this out of your life? There's some of you that I know that will be the case. There's some of you that it might not be that big of a deal. You'd prefer this to be filled and totally populated. Most of us, I'm not going to lie, If I could come in and have told Mechanics Time Savers or Napa, like, hey, you need to custom make this for me. I want a different shade of blue, close to this, but a little lighter. And I want 3/16 to 9/16. That's the ticket. That's the golden, ticket right there. But that's not feasible from the manufacturer standpoint. Now, if you got a 3D printer and stuff, you could create something similar to this. But in terms of it, you're going to walk in the store and come out with this for like on sale, not much money, for pretty solid setup, I have to say. You kind of have to take the good with the bad. The bad being larger footprint for unneeded sizes and the additional stress of what's missing. Right? Some of you have probably been here sweating bullets because there's a 5/32 shallow and not a corresponding deep, and there's a 9/16 deep and not the corresponding shallow. Did I lose them? What happened? Did this one melt? Did I use it on an impact and it shattered? What's the story? It's ultimately up to you, right? So these are brand new sets, barely use the deeps, but 2 pegs here, 2 pegs here. Can you live with that? Now, the benefit of doing it custom, of course, is you save money, right? I don't really want to go buy 5/32 and 1/8" socket along with the 9. I actually do want the bigger sizes, but let's just say, like, what you need, and it's 2 pegs on both sides. Is it to the point that you're going to feel like obligated to snag, 4 sockets here and 4 sockets here to complete this organizer? As I said, it's actually hard to find sockets in these drive sizes sometimes, so you might not even be able to do it. If you can, this might be a deal where if you've got SK and Wright, that's what these are, by the way, you might have to plug in Snap-on, and then you're like spending a ton of money because you're thrifty and got these on sale. You might have to go like down here. Maybe Mac is the only place that you can find the 1/8" deep, For the like OCD people, this is why I cover this, because I know this could be like a major downfall to what would otherwise be a pretty solid option. But let me know your thoughts on that, because that's really where this would go downhill fast. Again, if you're thrifty and you do quarter up to a point, 3/8, certain size range, and 1/2" picks up, whether you like overlap 1 or 2 sizes, or it's just the cutoff point 3/8, the cutoff point 1/2. Maybe work prescribes that, maybe it's some safety protocol. I don't know your situation, but in those cases, there could potentially be unused pegs and dead space for a home box, DIY weekend warrior type. This might appeal to you, but it might drive you crazy. For some of you, this is like a godsend, because you'll get this cool little 3/8 tray, and let's say that you go like, quarter to 3/4, and you're like, hey honey, I need to buy 8 more sockets here to fill this up, otherwise it's going to look like something's missing. And so it might be desirable because it gives you an excuse to buy tools. Maybe your stuff starts at 1/2". You're like, oh sweet, I get 3/8 and 7/16 if I can find them. There's pros and cons both ways. In terms of this though, I want to highlight this because you think like, that's not going to be near as good as a rail, that's stupid. Check it out. It's populated. We've got the sockets on it. Now, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to set this down to be fair. Let's just go with the big guy, 9/16 deep. It just lifts off. There's no magnet. It's literally just a friction peg. I'm going to daintily grab it. If I shimmy and shake and twist and turn, we can extract it. Now, obviously, you see one of the downfalls, like, that did 2 things. It shows you, A, this stuff actually holds because I was picking the whole thing up with it, but it also says like, hey, you're probably going to have to like come in and hold it down to lift this off. Also, over time, we could have an issue where I don't know if it's going to be in 3 months. I don't know if it'll be 2 years. I don't know if it'll be like 15 years, There could come a day where I go to pull this 9/16 off the rail and the peg is just like worn so bad that, maybe it tilts, or maybe it falls off, or it doesn't catch. Or maybe, are you ready? Are you pulling up to the Dairy Queen window? You are. If I wanted to like really press and flex this, it's actually fairly rigid, so that may not be true. It's more rigid than you would think it is. Like, I'm putting pretty good effort into that. But check it out. They stay on. Now, can I replicate that in a year? I don't know. That's going to be something that we have to figure. But for all intents and purposes, I kind of like these, and they're one of the more affordable options. Now, You're not magnetic. This isn't something you can pull out and throw on a lift. It's not something you can slap on the side of your cart. It is something you could take from your toolbox and put in your, like roll cart or a service cart. You could pick this up from your box or your cart and put it in a bag and, like go mobile to a field job, right? I wouldn't want to do that. Like if I had a service truck or, if you're in a van, whatever it may be, wherever you're located in the world, vans replace trucks, whatever. But you could totally have this like in the truck and then just pull the sockets off at the job site. But in terms of like, I'm going to grab this from my toolbox because I've got to go do an install or such and such is broken again. I don't know that I would want this in like a bag. It might work for a little while, but I feel like it's going to just wear it. And they're mainly, I guess the real thing, there's better options for that. But in terms of like stationary, whether it's stationary in your box or stationary in a cart or even like a work site, if you want it on a workbench, I think this is a pretty viable deal. Now, with this being a tray, especially trayed back here, it's going to collect dust. If you work in a machine shop, if you've got, like the road department or, grain elevators or, cornfield across the street that's plowed twice, whatever, stuff will collect there. I'm sure you can blow it out with the rubber though. It's kind of tacky. It's not like adhesive tacky, but just like tacky, right? Like clean, pristine rubber. So it might be an issue, something you would want to factor in when you're trying to select your ultimate, socket storage solution. A big advantage that you're going to see here and not with others is you've got this elevated for your deeps, and you can also actually see whether it's 3/8, quarter populated, vacant half-inch, you can literally see the back row and you can say, hey, that's the 3/8. So there's some organizers where that's a little bit more difficult, but once again, Mechanics Time Savers is the manufacturer. We got these blue ones, white font. Some of you will love that, some of you won't. Honestly, the contrast between the white and the blue makes the most visibility, so I'm fine with it. Mechanics Time Savers, you'd be looking at $30, $25 and $25, so no promotions, no discounts. $80, like from the manufacturer. From Snap-on, you can probably almost double that. From, let's see, Napa, your standard pricing, you would be looking at basically, we're just going to round up to the nearest dollar. So 24, and then we're going to call these 20 and 20. So we would be looking at $64. And if you get them on sale like I was able to do, you get a really good deal. You basically got $18 and then $11 for 29, and then our 3/8 would be 15, $44 for all three. I think that's a pretty fair price. Again, if you like this and you think that's the perfect color, I want blue, I do blue for SAE, blue's my color, whatever the case may be, I would say wait for a sale. If you've got to have it immediately, go ahead, pull the trigger, whatever. But Napa does some pretty good promotions. Obviously, they change them monthly. You can sometimes like work deals with them if you know the guy, or you're getting a lot of parts, that type of stuff. Online, though, if you have to rely on the promotions, if you go in there and these are like regular priced and you don't have to do this right now, wait a little bit and you might wind up waiting 3 months, 4 months, 6 months. But if you're patient, there should be some discount. Also with Napa, if you sign up for their email, become, I can't remember, I think they call it an insider or something. You can often get like random emails where you get 15% off, 20% off, rarely 25. Sometimes that's with caveats, but like 15 to 20% off is very common and frequent. So if there's not a promotion, you might actually be better off getting the 15 to 20% off. Just sort of depends. Always check and compare the prices. But also same thing, Mechanics Time Savers. Sometimes you can catch codes. You might be cheaper to buy direct. These obviously come in different colors. If you want like high-end, color coordinated with your like other items, Snap-on has these. Again, maybe you can work a deal there. But I gotta say, this is something I legitimately had never seen, and I'm kind of excited about them. So we will ultimately kind of showcase the pros and the cons. I'll show them in drawers, I'll show heights, I'll show negatives I found in limited time of use, good things I like in limited times of use. But mainly, I'm gonna have this side by side with other options in a real world scenario, an actual drawer. We'll pull test it. We'll say, hey, imagine you got to grab your 7/16, swapping out battery cables. I think that's the best way to showcase them. I'm going to do this, sort of our tool haul, initial impressions, cheesy demo thing, right? But then putting them all side by side, loaded up, populated, you'll get to see them. Obviously, if we had like a rail that we can customize, you wouldn't have dead space on either side. It's just one of those things. It's either going to be something you like, something you don't like, something you can live with, or something that's a total deal breaker. So my end goal is to bring this stuff in, try it out, see what I like, and along the way I'm going to showcase to you what we brought in, share to you what I think are pros and cons, showcase them in the real world scenario, and ultimately you can make that decision. This might be a deal where this just instantly kills this for you. It might be that it's plastic and it's not magnetic. For other people, they could be like me and had never seen this, but this might be the greatest thing they've ever seen. And they might not like the socket clips, they might not like the twist lock stuff, they might not like magnetic stuff, and this could like literally be their ideal socket holder. So ultimately, every one of us has our own preferences, our own logic, reasons, literal constraints in the case of some toolboxes. I just want to show them, give you what I've got, and see what would work best for you. So ultimately, what I'm the most curious about here, A, did you know about this style? B, how long have you known about it? C, if you know about these, have you used them? If you haven't used them, why? What are you using? Do you feel like what you have is perfect? Do you feel like this is too expensive? Is, the missing slots that you wouldn't populate a deal breaker? Do you find that they're too bulky and consume too much space? Give everyone your thoughts, especially with first-hand experience. And that way, somebody that comes along and sees this, they get to see, my thoughts, hear what I have to say about them initially. But the better thing is, like, if you've used these for 5 years and you're like, that thing's a joke, it's junk after 6 months of daily use. Or you could say like, man, I wish I would have found these sooner. I've had them for 3 years, zero issues. I love them. They're better than my previous insert socket trays and organizers. So that's the end goal, help people out without having to spend money to investigate it, which is what I'm doing. The good news is I really do feel with all this stuff I'm bringing in, I will actually use it for something. Ultimately, I'm going to pick what I like the best and have that as my default. But everything else I can totally do something with, so that's kind of the cool thing for me. But once again, hopefully this gives you a good idea. In the description, I'll have these linked. I also type out somewhat notes, if you will, down in the deal, so I'll literally have 13 sockets this side to that side. Obviously there's timestamps, so when we introduce the quarter, the 3/8, the half, you can click there. If you're on the fence with these and you want to come back, use the timestamps. You can go to like 8:45 and see like, oh, the idiot finally opened them and he's given the descriptions and the sizes. This is what I need to see. You can spend a minute, see how long it is, go measure yours, and decide if you're going to buy it or not, type of a deal. So with that said, I'm going to quit rambling. I want to cut down some boxes, get something else done before I head in. My feet are like ice blocks. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a little something. Again, my main thing, obviously I've been using this one. So far, no issues, but again, it's not been enough time to, like, oh, greatest thing ever, worst. It's just, it's there and it looks good and it's worked so far. So that's a real world, like 2 to 3 week update for you. So with that said, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have yourself a fantastic weekend. LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. Similarly, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like. Again, first-hand feedback, your thoughts, all valuable information. Leave that down below in the comments section. If you like what you see here, make sure you subscribe. If you ring the bell and jump your charger across the creek, YouTube just might let you know. You can see new tool videos every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Texas time, and sometimes on Wednesdays we've got automotive content. So stay tuned for that. Again, have a great weekend. Hopefully you had a good time here, and I will catch you back here as we continue on our epic journey through tool, storage, and organization.